welcome back to 110 Daily. I am Josh Doring. He is Chris Brown. We are here for you on a Tuesday. Alright, Chris, we're going to do this every Tuesday. At least that's the plan as of now. Our NFL top 10 now that the season is, or sorry, the NFL week is, well, kind of over. At this point, we got games on Wednesdays, Thursdays, but Tuesday is the
Every day of the
traditional.
week.
Right. Tuesday's kind of the traditional transition from one NFL week to the other. So that's when we're going to do this, our top 10 NFL teams, using whatever criteria we want. This is our show, so we can do whatever we please. So, that being said, Chris, I'll give you the honor of starting. Who do you have at number 10 in your NFL top 10 this week?
Yeah, so I certainly found as I was going through this and I started at the top and worked my way down. I was very confident with my first, five, six, really, I guess it was six, and then even extending a couple more teams. And then all of a sudden it got very messy near the final few teams where I could have seen an argument for the team that I might rank 14th. I could see an argument for ninth, and the team that I have 10th, I could see an argument for 15th. So it gets messy. I have the Rams as 10th. Now, they lost to the 49ers on Sunday for the second time this season, which may end up very well costing them the NFC West title. And I considered leaving them out of this. There were some teams that maybe you do end up having here in the that you end up having in the later part of your rankings, Josh. That I could see an argument for having them in over the Rams, um, but I couldn't do it. I still feel like for the Rams, there's still this scenario which it all comes together. Obviously, Jared Goff hasn't been very good. His moments are few and far between, and Sean McVay doesn't seem to have a lot of confidence in him right now, based on the plays that he's calling. Um, but there are just some really the talent on the roster. Honestly, at the end of the day, is what makes me optimistic that they can figure it out. It's a narrower path for them in my head of the ways in which they get on this run and get it all clicking. But I feel like with the talent, with the wide receivers, Robert Woods, and the defensive side of things, Aaron Donald, Jalen, everybody that they have there, I still have them as number 10. So yeah, Josh, do you have them in your top 10 at all?
No, they were right on the outside. It gets difficult. I was sort of in the
Yeah.
same place where you were picking between all these teams that are kind of in the wild cards on the sort of the outskirts of their divisional races, a game or two back or whatever, and you're trying to sort through all of them. I have the Dolphins at 10.
Okay.
I'm a huge Brian Flores fan. He should be coach of the year again, in my opinion. He should have been last year too, but he was never going to get it, even though he did a remarkable job. And Tua is going to be back soon. It's nice when you get to play the Jets and you don't have Tua available. I'm a believer in what I'm seeing from this team and the consistent performances they're putting in. Don't love their ceiling, but I did put them at 10. I was going back and forth, but that's who I went with what instead of the Rams.
Gotcha. Yeah, they would have been they're my number 11. I think that was probably there was another team or two that I was thinking in that mix too, but I think they'd be my 11 at this point.
Who do you have for 9?
I have the Colts 9. And this is a team that definitely there's a range based on how you feel about what happened this past weekend,
Yes.
or you could still be right. Like I could see a case for having them even a few spots higher. I could also see a case for I've seen, where people are down on them and have them down at 15th and they're like, oh, they're slipping. It sort of all depends on the way you approach what you saw this weekend from them. And I'm not especially concerned. Now, I'm not sitting here and going to say that I'm really optimistic and high on the Colts overall. I'm not listing sixth or seventh. They're ninth. They're still in that range of teams where I could have see in or out. But I think their great defense has been made vulnerable by their recent injuries. I mean, I count like at least five really notable defensive players who are all out for them this past Sunday for various reasons. I think, you know, given, Derrick Henry, of course, went off for 140 yards in that game in the loss to the Titans. But I really feel like that's the kind of thing where a lot of that is just the few key players for the Colts defensively that were out. So I'm not to with that in mind. I'm willing to put a lot of it on that. And so with that in mind, I still have them in my top 10.
I'm right there with you. I have the Titans 9, the Colts 8 for pretty
Okay.
much that exact reason. I think the Titans are going to win this division because they won that game,
Hmm.
but I think the Colts are the better team. I like the Colts chances better in the postseason. That's why I have them at 8, one spot ahead of the Titans. Yeah, Derrick Henry's been phenomenal. We talked about yesterday. He's very quietly, in my opinion, putting up Hall of Fame caliber numbers. That if he can do it for a couple more seasons, but I like Philip Rivers more in a I need my quarterback to be a difference maker situation than Ryan
Hmm.
Tannehill. I like Tannehill from a consistency standpoint, but I'll take sort of the higher risk version with Philip Rivers. And like you said, the defense so banged up. This is assuming that they get healthy when it matters most. I'm talking in a best case scenario. I am a big believer in having the defensive foundation first. It's why I liked the Titans so much last season, why I liked the Titans at the beginning of this season, and the defense just hasn't been there. It has been for the Colts. So that's the tiebreaker for me. I just feel better about the Colts' chances of matching up with anybody than I do the Titans.
Yeah, I certainly can't disagree with that. And it's fitting. I have the Titans eighth, so we just have them. We both have them in that 8-9 range, just flipped in terms of order. And I certainly see that argument. And like we're splitting hairs when we have them ninth and eighth. You know, I would also, as far as what some of the tiebreakers for me in that area were, the Colts were down some key players, but the Titans were also missing five starters on Sunday, and they played like a win. They played like winners who weren't going to let the circumstances dissuade them. And so I was impressed by that. Look, it's a team that's had their share of ups and downs this season. There's no doubt about it. But I think things are coming together for them at the right time. And so I just, there's a part of me that just like, I had to just the way that they looked, not even just the end result, but the way that these two teams played. I'm willing to give the Colts a pass to a certain degree, but I still listed the Titans one spot ahead of them. Uh, but I have the Bucks at number 7. For me, they were slow out of the gate against the Chiefs. They found themselves down 17-0 very quickly. They did make a late push and come close over the weekend, but as Josh mentioned, I believe it was yesterday's show, they just have these lapses where they're just all of a sudden just not there. They're not. What are you doing for significant stretches of games? And those are the kind of lapses that great teams just don't have that many of. The best way to put it for me, in my view of the Bucks right now, they're not one of the NFL's really best teams. They're one of the NFL's best collections of talent,
Mm-hmm.
and that could translate into one of the best teams if things shift. I don't really have confidence in that, but I do have confidence that if they do, this could be a team that could be a threat. But I can't have them. I didn't see enough reason, of course, to have them any higher into this next section of teams that I have much more confidence in.
I don't have them in my top 10 for that very reason.
Okay.
And I liked what I saw against the Chiefs, but I need to see that again next week and the week after that to really believe they're turning a corner. They've been too up and
Right.
down for me. They're again right on that. I was going back and forth between them and the Rams and the Dolphins. They're at 10. My 7 is the Browns.
Okay.
At
Yeah.
some point, we need to start taking this team seriously. I mean, they're 8-3, and they're playing in one of the best divisions in football, if not the best division. And maybe you feel differently now that Joe Burrow's hurt and the 49ers are playing better, so I would give the slight edge to the NFC West. But let's show the AFC North some respect here. And yes, they have a minus 21 point differential this season, but that's because they got blown out by Baltimore and Pittsburgh. It happens. That's ultimately why they're not higher is they're just not an elite team. But everybody likes to rag on Baker Mayfield, and no, he's not a great quarterback, but he's getting the job done. They're beating the teams they're supposed to in a season where many teams are not doing that. So I have them at 7.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I certainly see that argument. I wrestled with this was the point. I don't have them in my top 10. They were probably that other team that I can see, that was besides the that considered for that 10th spot. There were like those two other teams, three other teams. They were certainly one of them. And I really wrestled with this. I saw some people listed them around that same point that you did on similar type power ranking lists. I'm not there yet. Like obviously I'm there in terms of giving them a great amount of credit. Like I mean it's not really a reflection of me not thinking that they deserve a lot of praise and credit for where they've gotten themselves. It's just a matter of I'm just not, look, it obviously I can, get into some of the smaller, you say the defense still has holes. They're missing those key players. At the end of the day, I'm just not, it's one of those things where I'm just not to the point of seeing them as a real, I haven't seen them prove it to a larger degree yet. I mean, I just need a little bit more, and maybe that's not fair. I fully willing to admit that that's not fair, and I'm willing to give them a lot of credit. I just am not willing to bring them into that sort of top 10 team that can make a run if things click. I just don't have that confidence in them yet because I put a lot in terms of past performance. In terms of seeing a team do it in recent years that, of course, Browns don't have. But at number 6, I have the Bills. They took another step toward their first AFC title in 25 years, holding off a late charge from the Chargers over the weekend. But I actually have more concerns here than I would like to for a team that, I would have in my top 5, because Josh Allen was pretty reckless. He is prone to just launching the ball aimlessly as he is tackled, and it's not great. In their game over the weekend, they had 3 turnovers, 9 penalties. It was sloppy. The defense did lock things down. They made some really big plays. I still have some concerns with this team. Now, they're fixable concerns. They're things that I feel like aren't going to take major steps for them to be improved. But I do have some concerns, which is why I left them out of the top 5, where I feel like that's another tier.
I'm not so sure the Josh Allen interceptions is a fixable thing. He's also one of those guys that's in the Brett Favre mold. Now, yeah, you can work on making better decisions sometimes, but it's who he is. You're going to get the breathtaking stuff, the incredible throws, overall really good performances, but there's also going to be those head-scratching moments where you just wonder what's going on. He's an experience.
Right.
And Bills fans will tell you he is the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's the honest truth is it's somewhere in the middle there. But for the inconsistency we've seen at the quarterback position this year, he's been phenomenal. That's why I have them at 5. I have Seattle at 6 after last night's win. I have no doubt about Russell Wilson's ability to deliver in big moments. He's the best Monday Night Football quarterback in history in terms of winning percentage.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to see them win games in convincing fashion more consistently, which again goes back to the conversation we had about the defense. Wilson's been great. He was my MVP pick. This is not about him, not about DK Metcalf. Having Chris Carson back also really helps. That offense is going to be just fine. They're in terrific form. They're not worried about that. But can this defense take the next step and go from historically bad to average or not so bad and give them a real chance? So that's ultimately, I like the Bills defense better at this moment in time, so that's why I went with them at 5 and Seattle at 6.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I have Seattle at 5, so again, we just have them right in the same spots, just flipped. So yeah, I mean, I think it just sort of speaks to me, and I don't know necessarily. Maybe this is misplaced confidence. I'm a little bit more confident that Seattle's defense is turning a corner. That we are seeing real improvements that will be sustainable. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on saying because we've talked about this a lot. I guess I'm just generally a little bit more optimistic that the Seahawks defense is making a real turn. So I have that sort of gave him the slight edge for me over a Bills team that I just feel like their range is just a little bit all over the place. But we have those in the same range. I have the Packers at number 4.
As do I.
There we go. They pummeled the Bears over the weekend on Sunday Night Football in what was pretty much a flawless performance. They reminded everybody that they're one of the most dangerous teams in the NFL right now. The defense isn't perfect. They struggle stopping running backs, but they have very good situational pass defense. Aaron Rodgers remains in the MVP hunt, far behind Patrick Mahomes. in my opinion. But he looks pretty much as sharp as ever. I was optimistic about the Packers going into this season. I remain optimistic about this team. Obviously, they started well, things kind of leveled off, but I feel like this, obviously, I'm not trying to make too much of their win over the Bears, but I'm optimistic about where this team is right now.
Yeah, on paper and sort of from a wins-loss performance standpoint, it looks really good. My only concern is their only really good win was against the Saints back in Week 3.
Mm-hmm.
I can only give a team so much credit for beating the Bears at this moment in time.
Right,
now, they looked
right.
really good doing it. They've looked really good most of the season, which is why I have them fourth. But there was a gap for me. I was not putting them any higher than fourth because of these other three teams. Just because they haven't really taken their opportunities, and they haven't gotten all that many of them. And all of a sudden, the Vikings are playing better. It's not their fault they played in the NFC North that had three average to below average teams for most of the season. But they haven't really gotten those statement wins aside from the Saints. And so that's the one thing I knocked them for.
Yeah, absolutely. That's completely fair, and that's why, like I don't see them belonging in this top three. It was why it was easy for me to not consider them any higher than fourth. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised if we have the same top three in the
Yeah.
same top order. We will see. I have the Saints at three.
Yep.
So, these teams I don't think we need to spend as much time on because, of course, everybody, is paying attention to them. But they obviously, it's hard to make much of what happened over the weekend from their perspective because,
They
what
didn't
happened
play a
in Denver.
quarterback.
Right. They didn't play a quarterback. But, I look, their defense, the running game is peaking at the right time, which I think makes them the team to beat in the NFC. They have a 2.5 game lead over the Bucs right now in the NFC South. There's not too much to make of this weekend, but again, I think they're just the team to beat right now in the NFC because of things coming together for them at the right time.
28 points allowed in their last 4 games. That's all I have to
Mm-hmm.
add. I love this
Yeah.
defense. I've loved this defense all season. Hasn't been great at times, but really rounding into form. Yeah, there's just. I'm assuming you have the Steelers and Chiefs in some order, 1-2.
Yep. Steelers 2 and Chiefs 1 for
That's what
me.
I've got. Yeah. I mean, the Steelers have the fewest points allowed in the NFL by 21, and the Ravens are second, and they play the same amount of games. So they've clearly been as good as anybody in the league on defense.
Mm-hmm.
And the next team is the Dolphins at 205, and the Chiefs. I mean, Mahomes is doing his thing. They had one loss to the Raiders. Who really cares? They're the Chiefs. They're the best team in the NFL. I don't have too much to add there.
Yeah, same. I mean, I think it's pretty clear this is pretty much the consensus right now is it's Chiefs 1, Steelers 2. And, I don't have much to add on the Steelers. As far as the Chiefs, I have a little fun fact. The Chiefs beat the Buccaneers over the weekend for the first time since 1993
Well, how about that?
when Joe Montana led them to a 27-3 win. The Bucs had won 5 straight matchups. They don't play that often. The Bucs had won 5 straight against them. Yeah, it's hard to watch this Chiefs team without coming away thinking that they're the best team in the AFC and the entire NFL. Their only loss was a home loss to Las Vegas 7 weeks ago. Since then, they've beaten the Bills, Raiders, Bucs on the road. We know why this team is good. They continue to prove it, not leaving any doubt about their ability right now.
Yeah, and the Raiders are always just one of those sort of you don't really know what you're going to get games, so I don't put too much stock into that. Derek Carr played really
Right,
well.
right.
It's the Chiefs, and everybody's just trying to beat them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to humor ourselves by talking about things we find interesting, things we want to discuss that are sort of any collection of things that we just want to talk about. So stay tuned for that. You're watching 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network.